I think that's why that talk track is leading in politics. Is because it's because we have this divide between the haves and the have-nots.
It's confusing as hell.
That's really,
that might be
really
one of the
large.
biggest things. People don't understand it.
Yeah.
I mean, you start thinking back in history. What else is there that is this complex? And what Donald Trump said. Who knew healthcare was this complex? Anyone with a pulse who's been paying attention.
Yes.
It's ridiculously complicated because when I speak, and I have a good friend of mine, Ricky, and he brings a different perspective because he spent a lot of time studying how hospitals look at it. It's totally different than the way insurance people look at things. Totally different. And guess what? That's where that baby's going to be born. It's very important.
Yeah, at that hospital.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so we can think about it. So everyone has a bit of a different perspective. And it's just a really, really complex thing.
They say that the separation. So you have that complexity, and there's people trying to understand it. There's people who have access to good care, people who don't, and there's a number of programs that are in place to try to help that. Mm-hmm. But when the politics around healthcare and what's driving politics and political divide, they're saying that one of the number one reasons is the actual difference in wages, the actual difference in opportunity that exists in this country, where this gap is wider than it ever has been, and it's one of the largest contributing factors to a recessionary period going forward, or a downturn in our economy,
right? And
also giving way to, like we talked about, China coming in earlier, giving access or a very clear pathway for another superpower to kind of step up.
Right.
Because if you have these two separate, so you have, let's just say, the haves and the have-nots, they're going to vote differently.
Right.
They align with different political parties. And then there's this spite that exists. The further that gap goes.
Yeah, it's a bad idea.
Historically, the further that gap goes, the worse things get. And
like
then you
the
have
Ray Dalio stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And it goes from one side to the other.
Right. It happens over and over again.
Exactly. Ray Dalio talks about that all the time.
Correct.
He talks about how that's...
Well, you've got the Markets in Motion book, right?
Yes.
So it's a big old... Why did they make that book so big? It's like
marketing, maybe.
It's like 2 foot wide and like a big old thing. It's like as big as that TV.
And I'm putting our book in a book bag.
Right, exactly. We need a different bag for this book.
You carry this like a briefcase. Yeah. And put a handle on my book.
Right. But the basic, like the cycles in the markets have been happening. Just that's what happens. They just cycle.
Yeah.
I know the books that you've read. It's the same thing, whether it's 20-year cycles or 100-year cycles that you're looking at. And but yeah, I mean, I don't know that I want to live in a society where there's big gaps. I mean, you go visit a third world country. That's what it looks like.
Yes.
You don't want that. That's not a good idea. And, this country's a whole lot different than it was 15 years ago. When you think about the vast majority of the wealth has been made through investment and through most of it's not entrepreneurial. There's some of it, but most of it's stock market. So the stock market goes up and housing prices go up.
Yep.
But if you don't own a stock and you don't own a house, you're doing the same thing you did 15 years ago, and everybody else just got really rich around you.
Exactly.
And that creates a problem.